You don't hear it at first. It's too soft, too distant, too deliberate. A slow knock. Not on the door, not on the walls, from beneath the floor. And by the time they realized where it was coming from, it was already too late. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Night Archive, because tonight's story doesn't just stay in the past. Some say it follows. It started with a house nobody wanted, not because it looked abandoned, not because it was broken, but because it looked perfectly normal. Too normal. The kind of place that feels staged, like someone cleaned it, arranged it, and then just left. The listing had been up for months. No buyers, no offers, not even visits after the first few weeks. The price kept dropping, but still nothing. Until Daniel found it. He wasn't the type to believe in rumors. He saw opportunity where others saw fear. Cheap property, quiet land, no neighbors for miles. It was perfect. At least, that's what he thought. The agent barely spoke during the showing. Every question Daniel asked was answered with something vague. Old house, been empty, previous owner passed, but never how, never when, never why the house felt watched, because it did, even in daylight, even with windows open. There was a strange pressure in the air, like stepping into a room where someone had just been standing, but you missed them by seconds. Daniel laughed it off until the first night. It was around 2:17 a.m. when he woke up, not to a sound, but to silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong, like something that should be there is. And then he heard it, a knock, soft, hollow, below him. He sat up, heart pounding, listened carefully. Nothing, just his breathing. Then again. Knock, 3 times from under the floor. He told himself it was pipes. Old wood, settling foundation, anything logical. But logic didn't explain the pattern. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks again. Like something was trying to communicate. The next morning, he checked the floor. Nothing unusual. No loose boards. No gaps. No signs of damage. Just old wood, slightly worn. But one thing stood out. A faint mark. 3 thin scratches parallel to each other right where the sound came from. Daniel tried to ignore it, and for a few days he managed, until the knocking came back. This time louder, more urgent, and not just at night. It started happening during the day, while he was working, while he was eating. Always the same rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. And every time it came from the same spot. He placed his hand over it once, just to feel it, and instantly pulled it back, because the wood was warm, not sun-warmed, not room temperature, body warm, like something was just beneath it. That's when he called Mark. Mark had been his friend for years. Practical, rational, the kind of guy who could explain anything. When Daniel told him about the knocking, Mark laughed. Old houses make noise, he said. You're overthinking. But he still came over, because deep down, even Mark was curious. They waited, sat in the living room, right above the spot. Silence stretched for minutes. Then suddenly, knock. Both of them froze. Another 3 knocks followed. Mark frowned now. No more laughing. He leaned down, pressed his ear to the floor, and stayed there longer than he should have. When he finally sat up, his face had changed. "Did you hear that?" Daniel whispered. Mark hesitated. "Yeah, but it's not pipes." "No," Mark said slowly. "It's not." Daniel swallowed. "Then what is it?" Mark didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked to the kitchen, opened a drawer, took out a knife. Daniel blinked. "What are you doing?" Mark came back, knelt down, and pressed the tip of the knife between 2 floorboards. "I just want to check something." The wood resisted at first. Then, with a dry crack, it gave way slightly. And that's when the knocking stopped. Instantly, completely, like whatever was making it knew. Both of them stared at the floor. The silence now felt heavier than the sound ever did. Mark slowly pulled the knife back and whispered. It reacted. Daniel's chest tightened. "What do you mean, reacted?" Mark looked at him. "It stopped the moment I tried to open it." A long pause. Neither of them moved, because suddenly this wasn't about noises anymore. It was about something that didn't want to be found. That night, neither of them slept. They stayed in the living room, lights on, waiting. And around 3:00 a.m., it came back. But different. Not knocking. Scratching. Slow, dragging, deliberate from beneath the floor. Like something was moving and trying to get closer. Daniel felt his throat go dry. "Mark, I hear it." The scratching grew louder, closer, right under them. Then silence. Again. But this time, something else replaced it. A sound neither of them expected. Breathing. Faint, uneven, but unmistakable, from under the floor. Daniel stood up so fast his chair fell back. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not possible." Mark didn't respond, because he was staring at the floor, eyes locked, unmoving. "Mark, say something." Very slowly, Mark raised his hand and pointed at the exact spot where the scratches were. Daniel followed his finger and felt his stomach drop, because the wood was rising, just slightly, like something underneath it was pushing up. The wood didn't just move, it pushed. Slowly at first, almost testing, then a little harder. Daniel stumbled back. His breath caught somewhere between a scream and silence. "That's not possible," he whispered again. But this time, it sounded like a lie he was telling himself. Mark didn't move. He was staring, locked in, like if he blinked, whatever was happening would disappear. But it didn't. The floorboard lifted, just enough to create a thin black line. A gap. And from that gap, something cold slipped out. Not air, not dust. Something heavier, like a presence. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Daniel felt it first in his hands, Then his chest, like the air itself, had turned thick. "Mark, close it," he said, voice shaking. "Close it right now." But Mark leaned closer instead. That curiosity, the same thing that brought him here, now pulling him deeper. "Do you see that?" he murmured. Daniel didn't want to, but he looked. Inside the gap, there was no wood beneath, no foundation, no dirt, just darkness. Not the kind you get from lack of light. This was different. It looked deep, too deep, like the space below didn't belong to the house. Mark reached forward slowly, his fingers hovering above the opening. "Don't," Daniel snapped, but it was too late. Mark touched it and immediately jerked his hand back like he'd been burned. What was that?" Daniel asked. Mark stared at his fingers. "It's wet." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Wet with what?" Mark didn't answer. Instead, he wiped his hand on his jeans. But as he did, they both heard it again. Not knocking, not scratching, a voice, faint, broken. "Help!" Daniel froze. His entire body locked. "No," he whispered. Mark leaned closer again, his face pale now. "Did you hear that?" "I heard it," Daniel said. "I heard it." Another pause. Then again. "Help me." It wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from below. From inside that impossible darkness. Daniel shook his head violently. "No, no, this isn't real. Someone's messing with us. There's a basement or something." Mark slowly looked up at him. "There is no basement," he said quietly. Daniel's chest tightened. "How do you know?" "Because I checked the blueprints before I came." Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Then the voice came again. Closer this time. "Please." And this time it didn't sound weak. It sounded aware, like it knew they were listening. Mark swallowed. "That's a person." Daniel snapped his head toward him. "You don't know that." "I do," Mark insisted. "That's a person down there." Daniel took a step back. "There's no space for a person down there." "Then how do you explain the voice?" Daniel didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Because nothing about this made sense anymore. Mark looked back at the gap, then at Daniel. "We have to open it." "No, we have to." "No." But the word came too late, because Mark had already grabbed the knife again. This time, with no hesitation, he drove it into the wood harder. The board cracked, louder, splintering as he forced it upward. Daniel backed away, shaking his head. "Stop, Mark, stop." But Mark didn't stop. Another push, another crack, and suddenly the board gave way completely, falling inward, not downward, inward, like it had been pulled. Both of them froze, because that shouldn't be possible. Wood doesn't fall inward unless there's space. A lot of space. Mark slowly leaned forward, peering into the opening. Daniel stayed where he was. "What do you see?" he asked, barely audible. Mark didn't answer. "Mark," still nothing. "Mark, what do you—" "Stairs." Daniel blinked. "What? There are stairs?" That didn't make sense. "There can't be stairs." "I'm telling you there are." Daniel forced himself forward, every step heavier than the last. And then he saw it. Mark wasn't lying. There were stairs, old wooden, descending into complete darkness. But they didn't match the house. The wood was different, darker, older, like it had been there long before the house was built. Daniel's heart pounded violently. "That's not possible," Mark whispered. "I know." The voice came again, now clearer, stronger. "Please, it's cold." And this time it echoed, like the space below was far bigger than it should be. Daniel stepped back again. "We're not going down there." Mark didn't respond. He was already reaching for his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, but only for a few feet. After that, it vanished, like the light itself was being swallowed. Mark placed one foot on the first step. Daniel grabbed his arm instantly. "No, we can't leave someone down there. You don't know what that is." It asked for help. Daniel's voice broke. "It knows we're here, Mark. Think about that." A pause, a long one. Then Mark said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. "What if it's been waiting?" Before Daniel could respond, Mark stepped down. The wood creaked under his weight, and immediately the temperature dropped again. Sharper this time, like something had just woken up. Daniel stood at the edge, frozen. "Mark, come back." Mark didn't stop. Another step, then another. The light from his phone flickered slightly. Mark, still no response. He was halfway down now, and then he stopped, completely still. "Do you hear that?" Mark whispered. Daniel strained his ears. At first, nothing. Then something faint. Not one voice. Multiple, whispering, layered, overlapping, coming from below. Daniel's chest tightened. "Mark, come back up. Now." But Mark leaned forward slightly, like he was trying to listen closer. And that's when the whispers changed. They stopped overlapping, stopped layering, and became one, clear, direct, and loud enough for both of them to hear. "You came back." Daniel's blood went cold. "Mark," he said slowly, "it thinks you've been here before." Mark didn't respond, because something else had just happened. The light on his phone went out. Complete darkness swallowed him instantly. "Mark," silence. "Mark." A few seconds passed. Too long, way too long. Then finally his voice came back. But something was wrong. "I can't see the stairs." Daniel's breath stopped. "What do you mean you can't see them?" "I mean," Mark's voice trembled slightly now, "they're not here anymore." Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. "What do you mean they're not there?" he asked, his voice barely holding together. Below him, nothing moved, only darkness, and Mark's breathing. Faster now, uneven. "I'm standing, but I can't feel the steps anymore," Mark said. "It's like the ground changed." Daniel dropped to his knees at the edge, reaching down blindly. "Mark, grab my hand. I can't see you. Just reach up." A pause. Then, slowly, a hand emerged from the darkness. Daniel grabbed it instantly. Cold, too cold. Not just skin cold, dead cold. He flinched, but didn't let go. "I've got you," Daniel said. "I'm pulling you up." But when he tried, Mark didn't move at all, like something was holding him in place. "Pull," Mark said, panic creeping into his voice. "I am." Daniel used both hands now, straining, muscles tightening, nothing. It was like pulling against the weight of the entire house. Or something deeper. Something that didn't want to let go. Then Mark's grip tightened suddenly. Hard, too hard. "Wait," Mark whispered. Daniel froze. "What? Someone else is here." Daniel's blood ran cold. "No," he said instantly. "No, there's no one else." "I can feel them," Mark said, his voice shaking now. "They're touching me." Daniel tried to pull again. "Ignore it, just come up." But Mark didn't move. "They're cold," he whispered, "and they're everywhere." Daniel's grip started slipping. "Mark, move." And then Mark screamed. A sharp, sudden, broken scream that echoed unnaturally. And just like that, his hand was gone, pulled back into the darkness. Daniel reached down again, desperate, frantic. Nothing. No hand. No movement. Just silence, heavy, crushing. And then a sound. Not from below, from behind him. A soft creak. Daniel froze. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head. The living room was empty, exactly how it was before, but something felt off, wrong. He stood up slowly, every instinct telling him not to look away from the hole. But he did, and that's when he noticed it. The furniture. It had moved, just slightly. The chair was no longer where it had been. The table shifted, like someone had rearranged the room while he wasn't looking. Daniel's breathing became shallow. "No, no, no, no." Then a voice. Right behind him. "You left me." Daniel spun around. Nothing there. But the voice, it was Mark's. "You let go." "I didn't," Daniel stammered. "I didn't let go. You always do." The voice sounded closer now. Too close. Right at his ear. Daniel stumbled back, hitting the wall. "I didn't leave you." Silence. Then a soft laugh. But it was Mark's. It was deeper, distorted, layered with something else. "You did before." Daniel's chest tightened. What do you mean before?" No answer. Instead, the floorboards slammed shut. Violently. Right in front of him. The hole gone. The stairs gone. Like it had never been there. Daniel stared at it, frozen. "No, no, 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 no." He rushed forward, dropping to his knees, slamming his hands against the wood. Mark, can you hear me?" Nothing. He grabbed the knife again, jamming it between the boards, trying to pry it open. But this time, the wood didn't move. At all. Not even a crack. Like it had sealed itself. Like it was never meant to open again. Daniel's hands trembled. "This isn't real," he whispered. "This isn't real." Then 3 knocks. From beneath the floor. Daniel froze. Slowly, he looked down. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm. Same spot. But this time it wasn't asking. It was answering. Daniel backed away slowly. And then the voice came again. not from behind, not from below, from everywhere. Help me, but it was Mark anymore. It sounded like him, but something was wrong, too smooth, too controlled, like something was trying to copy him. Daniel shook his head. You're not Mark. A pause, then you're right. The voice changed instantly, deeper, older, and filled with something patient. He's still here. Daniel's breath caught. What did you do to him? Silence. Then, nothing yet. A long pause. He's learning. Daniel's stomach twisted violently. Learning what? Another pause. Longer this time. Then how to come back. The room felt smaller suddenly. The walls closer, the air heavier. Daniel backed toward the door. I'm leaving. No response. He grabbed his keys, his jacket, and the door was already open. Slowly swinging, he froze, because he knew he didn't open it. The darkness outside looked wrong, too thick, too still, and from somewhere, not outside, not inside, but in between came a whisper. Don't go. Daniel's hand tightened around the doorknob. I'm not staying. Another pause. Then you already did. And just like that, the door slammed shut. Hard, lock clicking instantly. Daniel stumbled back. No, he rushed to it, pulling, twisting. It wouldn't open. Not even slightly. Then behind him a sound. Wood. Cracking. Daniel turned slowly, terrified, because he already knew what he would see. The floorboards were lifting again. But this time, not just one, all of them. One by one, across the entire room. Rising, opening, revealing darkness beneath. Endless. And from that darkness, multiple hands began to emerge. Slowly, reaching, searching. And one of them looked exactly like Mark's. Daniel couldn't breathe. The room was no longer a room. The floor was gone, replaced by something that should not exist beneath any house, beneath anything built by human hands. Endless darkness, moving, alive. The hands kept rising, slowly at first, then faster. Dozens of them, pale, twisted, some thin like bones, some swollen, some barely human, all reaching, all searching, and all pulling themselves upward. Daniel stumbled back, his legs barely holding him. No, this isn't real, but it was, because one of the hands grabbed the edge of the floor, pulled, and something started to climb out. A head, slowly emerging from the darkness. Daniel's heart stopped. Mark, it looked like him, same face, same hair, same eyes, but the expression was wrong. Too calm, too empty, too aware. The thing climbed out completely, standing in front of Daniel, perfectly still. You stayed, it said softly. Daniel shook his head violently. You're not him. The thing smiled. A slow, unnatural smile. I am now. Daniel backed away, hitting the wall again. What did you do to him? The smile didn't fade. Instead, it widened slightly. He showed me the way. Daniel's chest tightened. What way? A pause, then, up, behind it, more hands were pulling themselves out. more shapes forming, some crawling, some dragging themselves across the floor, some not fully formed at all. Daniel's mind was breaking. This place, what is this place? The thing that looked like Mark tilted its head. It's not a place. Daniel froze. Then what is it? Silence. Then it's a space. That word echoed strangely, not just in the room, inside his head. A space between, it continued, where things fall and don't come back. Daniel's breathing became shallow. But they can come back, he said slowly, staring at it. Another smile. Only if someone opens the way. Daniel's stomach dropped. No, you opened it, the thing said gently. Daniel shook his head. No, Mark did. You pulled him. Silence. Heavy, crushing. Because deep down Daniel knew. He had reached into that darkness. He had made contact. And something had reached back. The thing stepped closer. Too close now. You felt it, didn't you? It whispered. When you grabbed my hand. Daniel's voice broke. That wasn't you. Another pause. Then, no, behind it, the room was filling. More figures crawling out. More faces forming in the dark. Some whispering. Some laughing softly. Some just watching, waiting. Daniel's eyes darted around. There were others, he whispered. Before us. The thing nodded slowly. Many, and they all opened it. No, a pause. Some were pushed. Daniel's breath caught. Pushed by what? The smile returned. But this time wider. Deeper by the ones who came before them. Daniel's mind spiraled. A loop. A trap. Not a house. Not a haunting. A cycle. And then he remembered something. The listing. The price dropping. No buyers. No visits. Except the first few. Those people, he whispered. They came here too. Yes. And they opened it. Yes. And they didn't leave. Another pause. Then not completely. The room grew colder. The walls seemed further away now. Like the space itself was expanding. Or breaking. Daniel backed toward the corner, shaking. I'm not staying here. The thing tilted its head again. You don't decide that. Daniel's voice cracked. I'm leaving. He ran toward the door. This time it opened. Instantly, like it was waiting. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran outside. Cold air hit his face. Real air. Fresh air. He didn't stop. Didn't look back. Didn't think. Just ran across the yard. Through the gate. Down the road. Far enough that the house disappeared behind trees. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. I'm out, he whispered. I made it. Silence. No whispers, no knocking. Nothing, just wind. Just normal. For the first time since it started, everything felt real again. Daniel laughed, weak, broken, but relieved. I'm out, then he heard it. Not from behind. Not from the house. From below. Beneath the road. Knock. Daniel froze. Slowly he looked down. Knock, knock, knock. Same pattern, same rhythm. His breath stopped. No, then a voice. Soft, familiar. Daniel, his entire body went cold. Help me, it was Mark. Or at least it sounded like him. Daniel stumbled back, shaking his head. No, I left. I'm not there anymore. A pause. Then neither am I. The ground beneath him shifted, just slightly. And for a split second, Daniel saw it. A crack, thin, dark, deep. And something moved beneath it. Watching, waiting, learning. Daniel stepped back slowly, heart racing, because now he understood. It wasn't the house. It was never the house. The house was just the first door. And once it's opened, it doesn't close. It follows. It spreads. It waits for the next person to listen, to respond, to reach. And Daniel was still hearing it, still feeling it, still connected. The last thing he heard, before everything went silent, was that same voice, but no longer weak, no longer asking, now calm, certain. Don't worry, a pause. Then you'll open it again. And somewhere far away, or maybe right beneath you, something knocked.